everyone. Thanks for joining us in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. This is Joe Warzycha with Rhode Island SPCA, and we're giving you a couple updates on different things going on with the animal welfare within the state, different bills, different ordinances, all kinds of good stuff. Joe, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and happy almost 4th of July.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you. Exciting. Hopefully got a little bit of a history lesson when you're listening.
I did. You did much better than I would.
Oh, thanks.
So good for you.
I practiced.
Yeah.
I was reading up. All right, so let's start with House Bill 6023. People might not know what that means, but the Humane Society of America has really stepped up their game advertising, pushing this through. I know I've gotten phone calls, have been advertised to on Facebook, really trying to push this through. You were in talking about this, dealing with the rights of chickens and enclosure space. Talk to me about what's going on, an update on this.
Sure. So, I commend the HSUS for their efforts. I mean, they really did an exceptional job with the grassroots efforts in marketing and really reaching out to the community. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like the bill is going to pass this year. It did pass the House with an amended version. The initial bill had kind of two parts to it. It was banning the use of battery cages and also banning the sale or importation of any products that come from other states that utilize what Rhode Island would consider unlawful confinement.
Oh.
So the House passed the bill, the amended version removed the second portion.
Okay.
So the whole importation and the sale was taken out of the bill. They passed it basically just banning the use of battery cages in the state. And unfortunately, the session comes to an end. I believe tonight is the last night for a hearing. I didn't see it on the Senate calendar for a hearing, so it kind of looks like it's just going to die in the House where it is this year.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So how is that making people feel in the animal welfare community?
Well, I think we were excited when it passed the House.
Yeah.
We would have liked to have seen it pass in its original version, but, we always look at a partial win is better than no win at all. And then, unfortunately, it seems to get stuck in the Senate for whatever reason. There's been some versions of the bill introduced over the past couple of years,
Yeah.
and there's more of a fight on the Senate side. We're a resilient community, us animal people, so we'll have back at it again next year.
Okay, all right. And I've noticed, I was kind of doing some research on this and looking at both sides of the argument. Noticed that the Humane Society has really picked up their game, trying to, reaching out with direct phone calls, reaching out with direct messaging, trying to get this pushed through. What's the argument I noticed on the other side is that I thought was interesting. People were saying that I saw at least on social networks saying that politicians shouldn't be wasting time on this. There's more important things to discuss. Do you think that was a fair argument? Maybe that's why it died?
Well, everybody is entitled to their own perspective. I'm an animal welfare guy,
Yeah.
So anything, exactly. So, anything related to animals and their welfare is important. And I think interestingly, in my job at the SPCA, when I deal with cruelty investigations and deal with police departments and legislation in the General Assembly, they will tell you that animals and children tend to get the most attention. So I would argue that it's certainly an important issue. The general public seems to be very interested in the humane treatment of our children and our animals.
Yeah. Great. So we'll have to see what happens moving forward, and there always seems to be that fight that people can make decisions based on their dollars, right? So people still have that choice to make decisions based on their purchases.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, one of the arguments was let the market decide, and I would argue that the market is already deciding because we spoke about some major organizations, Walmart and Stop and Shop, and already vowing to go cage-free. So to me, that's a sign of a response to what the people want. And you always reserve that right. I mean, the other forms of products will be available to you, and you still have the right to choose. So, like I said, we'll see. We'll be back at it next year.
Back at it next year. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's move forward to the next issue I wanted to discuss with you. Providence dog breeding ordinance. Looks like it went through. I had a version on. I copy and pasted on my phone. Here we go. Looks like it got approved as amended. That was May 11th. Dog breeding ordinance. Had interesting discussions and feedbacks on this from all sides of all issues. Walk me through this ordinance.
Sure, and I'm really happy to have the opportunity to do that, because I think the message may be misconstrued or may be misinterpreted a little bit. This was an effort by the Providence City Council. We were not behind it. We were asked to support it, and I did go and speak in favor of it. I think it was in response to a lot of complaints regarding breeders and what we call backyard breeders, in finding that on my investigations, you're finding people who are, one, in it for the money, and not responsible about it, and people that may have good intentions but just don't have the logistics or the setup to properly care for a large number of dogs. So basically what the ordinance does is, within the confines of the city of Providence, you need to apply for what they call a breeding permit if you want to keep your dog intact. So an unneutered male or an unspayed female, and if you choose to do that and breed, you need to apply for a breeding permit. So what they're saying is they're not preventing people from breeding, they just want it to be done responsibly. And in conjunction with applying for the breeding permit, it would give local animal control the right to come to your property to inspect, to ensure that you are equipped to handle the number of dogs that you may have, and just be knowledgeable about sanitation and welfare and disease control. I mean, there are a lot of things that go into breeding that people aren't aware of. And also because we have, I'm not saying an overpopulation problem, but we have shelters. We have shelters full of dogs, and a lot of that comes from overbreeding, and I don't want to say unwanted, but just dogs going into homes, and then people not necessarily knowing what they're getting into, and they end up in the shelter. So part of that goal is also to hopefully cut down on the number of dogs in the Providence shelter, and I would say they're probably the most challenged in the state as far as numbers are concerned.
So with this permit that people have to get, there's a couple pushbacks that I've received and other people have received in terms of questioning it and kind of pushing back. One has been from the Providence County American Kennel Club, and that has been that they are saying, they don't agree with this because they should have the right, they show their dogs, they breed their dogs, and if they have more than one, they either can't continue breeding their dogs, or your dogs have to be intact in order to show your dogs, right? So kind of walk us through explaining that and how, because there's a limit on how many dogs you can have when they're intact and that kind of thing. So kind of walk us through and how you are approaching criticism.
Okay, sure. So there's always been a limit on the number of dogs you can have within the city. Okay. It's always been 3 dogs. What's changed in the ordinance is it was 3 dogs over 6 months of age. So now they've lowered that to consider an adult dog 3 months of age, because what was happening is you were seeing places with 3 adult dogs and a large number of dogs under 6 months of age. If you're breeding, most of your dogs, you're breeding, people want puppies. By 3 months of age, they're probably already going to be out of the household, so they should have no problem falling within the confines of the 3 dogs. And just about every other municipality in the state of Rhode Island, so people know, have a 3-dog limit. This is not unique to Providence. And again, we're not telling people that want to breed and do it responsibly, like the organization that you referred to, that you can't do it. I would think they would be welcoming of it, because what we're trying to do is ensure responsibility in breeding. And these organizations, I think that's what they promote, is breeding responsibly. The bill is focused on those people who are not. There's always the right to exercise discretion. Any law or ordinances there, in the animal control division has the right to utilize discretion and focus on those people where we're seeing the problems, where we're getting those, I say uneducated in the area of breeding and animal care, irresponsible breeders, where we're finding dogs in just not good conditions, for lack of a better term. I mean, that's what the goal is. It's not to go after the people that want to do it responsibly. You apply for a permit, they come out, they ensure that you have the ability to do it, and there's no reason why they shouldn't grant you that permit. It's $250, which people may think is a lot of money. if you're breeding, you're going to make far more than that on any one given litter in the course of a year. So it really doesn't seem to be a major financial burden.
So if you're showing dogs, and this is what, and I'm not super familiar with this, but I've tried to become familiar with it so I can have this conversation with you,
Sure.
right? So if you're showing dogs, they have to be intact in order to be able to show them. That's so they're within the standard. And you have a few of them. You can only have 3. That's according to this. So, I mean, is animal control then going to come and take away your dog? That's what people are fearful of.
Right.
Or say your neighbor, doesn't like you, so they call and report you to animal control.
Sure.
I mean, I think people, when they see something like this, right away, the impression is, don't take away my animal, right? And I can understand working with animals that what this is going for. But I think when people read something like this and they have, their pets or something, they're afraid that you're taking away my animal or you're targeting me, right?
Sure.
Or you're punishing me for being responsible
right.
for people who aren't responsible, right?
And these, they're reasonable concerns and reasonable arguments. And again, I go back to discretion. There are a lot of, even from when I investigate cruelty offenses, not every offense I investigate results in charges. I mean, you have the right to exercise discretion. Some can be resolved with education. And many of these may very well be able to be handled in the same manner. Going back to, all of a sudden I can't have more than 3 dogs. That hasn't changed. The 3-dog limit has always been there. They're just dropping the 6 months to 3 months.
Okay.
And as far as taking people's dogs away, I don't necessarily, I can't speak on behalf of animal control, but I don't think if they get a complaint from a neighbor or from somebody, they go out and somebody has 4, or maybe even somebody has 5. And the conditions are sanitary, the animals are well cared for. Do I think they're going to target those people? No. I can't speak on their behalf, but I've spoken to the director of animal control. We've had this conversation, and she assured me that this is their mentality behind this ordinance. It's those houses that we go to, where there are 12, 20 plus dogs living in, inadequate conditions. That's where the focus is going to be, because prior to that, we would go out and somebody may have, again, 3 adult dogs, but 12 that are 5 months of age. They just happen to fall under that 6-month mark. And maybe they're bordering on, okay, this is cruelty based on the conditions, but not really. And it kind of ties our hands with no other approach to the matter. So it just gives us another tool to utilize, and not to say that every time it's going, I say being forced. Some of these may just result in education, like, hey, how can we help you reduce your numbers? Not we're taking your dogs and we're going to fine you and we're going to charge you. So I think people got a little bit overly concerned with the purpose behind the bill. It's to target those people who are doing it irresponsibly for the wrong reasons, or those people who don't have the general welfare of the dogs in mind. And I don't know why anybody wouldn't be supportive of something like that.
All right, and I think you hit on a good point there. Will a lot of it be that educational process? Sometimes you find, unfortunately, a lot of people who, work with animals find them in just downright deplorable conditions, and so this gives another leg to stand on to remove those animals. But, sometimes other people just need education help. Will this provide an opportunity to help folks get education rather than just go and give a fine and take dogs away? Will it help that process of spreading education?
Well, I think, we're always advocates of spay and neuter, because of population control and reduction of the numbers in the shelters, like we spoke about. So just educating people in that regards about the importance of spay and neutering. And again, a lot of it is their response to the, our presence or animal control's presence being there. If somebody is receptive and open to, well, geez, I didn't really know about this, and welcoming of assistance, I would say a lot of these circumstances could probably be resolved that way. But the ordinance is always there in the event that people are not willing to cooperate, and then you can move to more of an enforcement perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that helps clear things up. I know we've had a lot of comments, a lot of feedback, a lot of concern, kind of trying to figure this out and kind of digest things all. This was approved by the city council. Are we still waiting on approval from the mayor, or is this going to affect?
That I'm not sure. You know what else if I could mention in regards to that. So this is what is interesting to me, and I can't necessarily figure out. There's already a state law that mandates spay and neutering of cats. So granted, yes, dogs and cats, are different species of
I didn't
animal.
even know that.
Right. So,
Where have I been, right?
it's been on the books for quite a while. So
All right, everybody, spay and neuter your cat.
On a state level, the state already says 6 months of age or older, it's mandatory that your cat is spayed and neutered. So, I mean, again, I commend the city of Providence for really being, proactive and progressive, because I would love to see this expand throughout the state. And again, for those people who want to breed and breed responsibly, that's their position, and we would not interfere with that. But it would be more focusing on those people who aren't. So it's tough. Dog people and cat people sometimes have different mentalities, and on the flip side, there's no limit on the number of cats you can have, but there's a limit on the number of dogs. And when you try to talk to people who have cats about, hey, we want to limit the number of cats you have, you'd be like you're taking away their right to vote or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just a different mindset.
We tend to see sometimes really tough cases when it comes to cats.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we have a number of cat hoarding cases every year. And again, our hands are tied a lot of times because it comes down to numbers, and there aren't any laws specifically addressing numbers when it comes to cats.
Is it maybe time to think about that?
We've tried, and I've gotten beat up pretty good at the State House for legislation that we've introduced. And again, it's that mindset of, it's a different species of animal, and we can, we respect that. But when you see what we see in these hoarding situations, and the numbers and the conditions, and again, we're just looking for another tool or another way to address it. We're not looking to take people's animals away, send them to jail. We're looking for another way to assist in the situation and correct the problem.
Okay. I think too, it's always good if there are concerns, is it a good idea for people to reach out? I mean, is that? Absolutely.
I mean, we're a good resource. The SPCA is a good resource, and we're very fair. And even from as an enforcement agency, our first goal is always education. I mean, there's some cases that are so egregious that warrant action, and we're okay to do that. But we are all about educating the public.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let's talk about there's one more bill that you mentioned that just passed and that we wanted to chat about.
Sure. So this bill would mandate certification for animal control officers in the state of Rhode Island. They would have to be certified through the National Animal Care and Control Association. This has passed both the House and the Senate, has been forwarded to the governor for signature, which we're really hoping for. I work very closely with animal control throughout the state of Rhode Island. They're all in support of it. I mean, they want the training. They want to professionalize the organization. They're out there on the streets every day representing their community, wearing uniforms that say, City of East Providence, the town of Barrington. And it's important that they're trained for a number of reasons: for safety, for liability, for their own safety, for the safety of handling animals, and for liability on behalf of the city or town in which they work for, because you're dealing with the general public. And when you go to their house and you tell them that, hey, I'm taking your dog away from you, your cat away from you, those situations can become confrontational. So, this training provides, not only just animal related, but just personal safety issues, how to handle yourself in confrontational, even verbal confrontational situations.
Smart, yeah.
So it's a great curriculum. I've been through it. I highly recommend it. So we're super happy to see that pass the House and the Senate, and once it's signed, I'll probably rest a little more easily. Yeah.
Well, that's great too. I mean, plus it's so interesting too, because you never know what you're going to get. I mean, seeing what animal control officers have to deal with, it's not, one, you have to deal with people, two, you have to deal with animals, and three, you never know what kind of animals. I mean, I've seen animal control officers go out and they come back with a snake, or they come back with birds. They come back. You have no idea what you're going to get. So to have some type of formalized training, universal training, I mean, that probably is a big relief to a lot of people, and will be nice to have.
Sure. And it's the misconception of the old dog catcher. Those days are gone. They're not just out picking up stray dogs, and they help me tremendously. I mean, I'm the only humane officer for the state of Rhode Island, so I can logistically handle every complaint I get. So I'm constantly calling animal control. A lot of times they're the first to respond to a cruelty investigation, and the first officer on the scene can oftentimes make or break a case. They'll get training in, collection of evidence, and crime scene preservation, and photography, and all these things that are important to putting together a cruelty investigation. So it makes me feel a lot better.
Probably too, just also having resources for themselves, because I would imagine it's tough to deal with some of that
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To see some of the stuff that
yeah.
they see, really tough. So hopefully some resources for them too. We do, just before you go, because we're running short on time, 4th of July is coming up, and you're like, I suppose I can talk about this for a few minutes. 4th of July could be tough for some animals. Do you have any helpful hints, tips that we can help all of our dogs, maybe cats, I don't know, to prevent them from being stressed out, or to prevent them from ending up at a shelter, right?
Sure.
Because I know my dog is terrified of fireworks, so I have some ideas on how to keep her safe, but to help our dogs from running away or getting stressed out.
Yes, and it's good timing, because just prior to this, if you go on our Facebook page, we've posted some very helpful tips, which I brought today, and
Great.
I'm happy to just briefly
Perfect.
go over a few of them. First one is make sure you exercise them early in the day. So tiring out a dog, they always say a tired dog is a happy dog.
Perfect.
And we're talking about dogs because I do think dogs are more sensitive, and people think about fireworks dogs. So tire them out, it's always beneficial. When they're inside, give them a comfortable place. Try to dim any outside, audio. Turn the air conditioner on. Maybe turn the radio up just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Give them something to keep them busy. A stuffed Kong, something they can chew on, something to distract them a little bit from what's going on outside. Remove visual stimuli, so can't hurt. Close the shades. They're not seeing it. It may be helpful. And then we talk about some extra measures. We're getting close to the 4th, and fireworks I'm sure will be going off this weekend, but you can always talk to your veterinarian. Some extreme cases may require medication that your veterinarian can prescribe. There are other things in the industry, thunder shirts. Have you ever seen the shirts you put on the dogs?
Yeah.
And it kind of supposed to give them the feeling of being hugged and feeling secure. We've used them in our shelter environment for some dogs who are super stressed out, and we've seen them work. So just another tool.
Look into it.
Yeah. So if you go on our Facebook page, you can find a more detailed list of all these options you have as the 4th approaches.
I like that.
Yeah.
Joe, thank you so much. So hopefully we've helped inform you on the latest and all things animal welfare, and maybe give you some ideas on how to help if your dog gets super stressed out over 4th of July with thunder or with fireworks, right? So before you go, let's take a picture. Have to get that in there. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
in.
you
I
very
appreciate it.
much.
Good to see you as
Yeah,
always.
nice